Very few of us question if God is with us in the good seasons of life. But have you ever questioned if God is still with you during the more difficult seasons of your life? We hope to show you how He is always with you regardless of what season you're in today's video.
Hey everyone and welcome. My name is Jesse. I'm the online campus pastor. I'm here with Carrol, who is our senior pastor here at Portico, and we want to welcome you to a campus that streams anytime, anywhere.
Portico is one church, one message, many expressions. We've got campuses all over the place, but you're going to hear the same basic message regardless of where you go. Here in our online campus, we get right to the point. It's a little shorter, and we give you easy to understand practical applications of the message. Now, we're in a 6-part video series called Beautiful Purpose, and we're studying the book of Esther. And Esther and Mordecai are the two key people that we've been following in this series, and they go through a whole bunch of different seasons in their life.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's when good things happen in our lives, I think it's very easy to look at God and say, hey, God, you brought these good things, whether it's a new job, new relationship, a baby on the way, right? We look to God and we say, hey, God, you're the one that brought these things.
Yeah, and then when you go through a hard season of your life, it's almost the very opposite. We say, why has God abandoned me? Why aren't I seeing God's goodness in this season? And Esther and Mordecai actually show us that we can see God in both the good seasons and the more difficult seasons. So let me teach you a little bit about what the Bible has to say about trusting God in every season of your life. So Mordecai's family was born in Jerusalem. Mordecai might have actually even been born in Jerusalem, but then all of the Israelites were taken out of their home country, and they were taken as slaves into Persia by King Xerxes. And we believe that it was actually God that was part of this. It had been prophesied for years that this was going to happen. They had to trust that God was still with them as they were being taken to another country. And this all takes place in the same kind of era and the stories that we may know of Daniel and the lion's den and King Nebuchadnezzar. But God was still with them. Now let's go to Esther. Esther, we find out in chapter 2, is left with no parents. Both of her parents pass away. But then God brings Mordecai into her life, and he adopts her, and he becomes her greatest counselor. See, God was still with Mordecai as he was being brought to a new country. God was still with Esther when there's loss in her family. And it's hard to trust that God is still in control in the most difficult seasons of our lives, but if we look hard, we can actually see God still present. So as time goes on, Mordecai learns that there's a plot to kill King Xerxes. Now think about this. King Xerxes is the one that ends up, or was the one that brought Mordecai into slavery, and he finds out that his life is threatened. Now what would you do if you found out that the person that was persecuting you was having their life persecuted? Would you step in and try to protect him, or would you just kind of let it happen? But here's the thing, doing what's right is always right, regardless of what's going on in your life. And so he steps in and lets the king know, hey, somebody's out to get you. He treats this leader that nobody else respected with the same honor that he would have given to a leader who was treating him well, and he saves the king. And the craziest part of all of this is, if you keep reading in the book of Esther, is this king that Mordecai saves is the same one that actually makes it possible for the law to be passed out that all of the Jews were going to be killed. Mordecai did what was right in a horrible season of his life, because that's what a follower of God does. But as time goes on, Mordecai continues to do the right thing. And as they pray, and as he and Esther meet, and his council of Esther ends up devising a plan where they come to the king and they say, King, this isn't right. Can we maybe do something differently? And the plot that was being brought out against the Jews was exposed, and the Jews were protected, and eventually Mordecai is made prime minister over all the prince where the Jews lived in Persia, because he continued to do what was right in difficult seasons and in good seasons. See, whether life is going well or whether life is very difficult for you, the question is, are you able to keep doing what is right? That's the mark of someone who trusts God in every season. There's an amazing verse in the book of Job, and Job is the story of a man who seemed to have everything. He had large family and lots of wealth, and it was all taken away from him. And in the end, we see it restored to him. But here's what Job says right at the moment when everything was taken from him, and his family died, and his wealth was taken from him. He says this in chapter 1, verse 20. The Lord gave me what I had, and the Lord has taken it away. Praise the name of the Lord.
Are there seasons in your life that you've despised because they were not extravagant enough? Perhaps you have or are experiencing seasons of waiting, transition, or seasons of hard work where you question whether or not you'll ever see the benefits or rewards of your labor come to fruition. You see, these seasons can be quite challenging and discouraging, especially when we feel that we should be somewhere in our lives where our reality is saying we're simply not. And then don't even get me started about how we might compare our low points to someone's highlight reels, whether it's through social media or everyday life that adds even more weight into the mix. The reality is we tend to have a romanticized imagery of what can happen when we get to some glorious destination that will automatically turn our frowns into smiles and our misery into joy, rather than experiencing the goodness of God in the midst of the process and discomfort. I really do feel that this is one area that we often struggle with. I know I struggle with this statement right here, seeing God's goodness and power fully at work in the midst of mediocrity and feelings of incompetence. Let's be honest, the process is quite messy and less attractive than the end result that we so desperately long after. You see, we as a people have the tendency to quickly leave moments that calls for development, only to then prematurely enter into seasons of blessing. But we can never enjoy what we have not been prepared for, and we can never appreciate what we haven't been trained by. And for this reason, God is gracious and will never allow us to forfeit what we need in the process to pacify who we temporarily are. He lovingly invites us to grow at the expense of our dignity, convenience, and reservation to equip us with eternal gain. I just want to say that again, that God lovingly invites us to grow at the expense of our dignity, our convenience, and our reservation to equip us with eternal gain. While we undergo less desirable seasons, God's will for us is to grow in character while honoring the people around us. This is a lesson we learn from the life of Mordecai. Mordecai was a man who was consistently faithful to the king, and he was never honored for his deeds. And although that may have been frustrating to him, Mordecai saw the bigger picture on why he was faithful in the first place. He wasn't in it for the recognition or temporary praise. He was in it for permanent results. His desire was to see the people of Israel free from captivity and to encourage and support Esther towards her God-given destiny in accomplishing this. You know, Rick spoke about this earlier. He talked about how the good deeds of Mordecai that was done for the king. Well, this brought the king to wonder one day, has anything ever been done for Mordecai to honor him for his great deed? Long story short, Mordecai was promoted and God was glorified. You see, promotion is not far from humility and demotion is not far from pride. I find that in seasons that God is more concerned about our revelation of who He is rather than our temporary infatuation of what we think He must do. We see in part, He sees in full. He is perfectly on time in every season. He is discovered in every detail, and He does not miss a single beat. Lamentations 3 verse 22 and 23 says that the faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is His faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh every morning. I want you to take a moment and reflect upon this question right here. Could it be that God allows us to undergo seasons that are lowly to equip us for moments that are extraordinary?
So listen, we know that many of you will be watching a video like this and it really resonates with you because you're going through a really difficult season in your life. And you look all around you and you go, this person's life is going amazing. How come this person has this and I don't have that? We want to remind you that you don't have to go through this alone. We were designed to go through the difficult seasons of our lives together. I want you to go over to portico.cc/prayer and fill out a prayer request for us and just let us know what you're going through. If you put your email or your phone number in there, somebody will contact you personally and spend a few moments praying with you about what you're going through. And we will remind each other that God is present and going through the seasons of life with us, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And we were designed to journey together, reminding each other that God is always with us.
Finally, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Take this video, share it with your friends, your neighbors, those that you know that would benefit from hearing this message. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to respond to all of this crazy mess that we see going on in our world. So make sure to tune in, and we'll see you next time.